What's up, guys? It's day 95 of the 100 Days of LeetCode. We got an easy problem, transpose matrix. Let's do it. So we're given a 2D integer array matrix. We want to return its transpose. Now, the transpose of a matrix is the matrix flipped over its main diagonal, and it's switching the matrix's rows and column indices. Now, we can look at this example. 2, 4, and 1 is the first row here. It becomes the first column of the second of the transpose matrix. Negative 10, 5, and 11 is the second row. It becomes the second column of the transpose matrix. Now you can keep doing that for rows and the columns, and you'll see that just the rows are swapped with the columns. It's pretty much all we're doing. Now, we want to be a little bit careful here because we're not necessarily going to be given a square matrix, meaning the number of rows doesn't necessarily have to equal the number of columns. Okay, so we're going to have to be a little bit tricky in how we do this. So let's get to the solution. So we're going to be using these a lot, so let's just save them in variables. We're going to say m is equal to the length of matrix, and n is equal to the length of matrix 0. Okay, so one of these is the rows, one of these is the columns. Traditionally, I mean, I guess this is actually backwards because being the length of matrix, this would actually be, oh no, that's the number of rows. Yeah, so m is the number of rows, just like in linear algebra. M represents the number of rows, n represents the number of columns. Okay, so now let's get to solving it. We need to return a list of lists, so we're going to create a list of lists, and we're just going to call it transpose. Now, we are going to set it to, we're going to make sure that we do the opposite, right? So while m is the number of rows in the first matrix, we have to make sure that m is the number of columns in the second matrix. And the way we do that is we can just say 0 for in range m, and then 4 in range n. Okay, so this is going to be the length of sort of the inner lists, right, which is actually the number of columns. And then we're going to have this for the number of columns of the first matrix, which will be the number of rows in the second matrix. Now we've declared that. All we got to do is we basically just got to loop through and assign it the proper values. So now we can do for I in range n, right? And then for j in range m. So we first want to iterate through the columns and then the number of rows of the first matrix, right? And what we can do is we can just say transpose I j is equal to matrix j I. And again, the reason for all of this sort of confusion between, not confusion, but all these extra steps we're taking for the rows and columns is because if we have a matrix that has, say for example here, see here we have 2 rows, 3 columns, but our answer has 2 columns, 3 rows, right? So they're going to switch. The number of rows and columns are going to switch. That's not a problem when you have a square matrix, but when you don't, you have to do sort of the coding that we did to make sure that we get the correct response, or else you're just going to get index out of bounds errors when you try to switch anything. And then we can just return our transpose, and that should be it. There you go. So that's how you solve that problem. That was day 95 of the 100 Days of LeetCode. We got 5 days left after today. We're almost there, guys. If you enjoyed that video, please like, subscribe. Take care.